boy Titus, and he's going to talk to us about media production, talk about his experience, and give us a little insight on what it takes to get into the media film field. We have spoken to different YouTubers and production company owners and stuff like that. But I think this one's going to be a little bit different. So without further ado, I'm going to let you speak and just talk to us a little bit about what your background is, man.
First of all, thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, not a problem,
I
man.
really appreciate this. This is always, it's always humbling to especially be able to give back to people coming out of TU. So I don't take this lightly at all. But yeah, my name is Titus Burrell. I am the Chief Content Officer for Be Inspired Global. We are a family-owned company. It was started by my wife and I. Well, really, it was started by her. So I guess what kind of happened with us was I started going to school. Well, I want to give you a chance to ask your questions, but yeah, I don't want to get too far into it. So yeah, I'm the Chief Content Officer of Be Inspired Global. You can find us on Facebook, beinspiredglobal.media, anywhere. And I graduate alum of Towson University. I think it's one of the greatest schools in the Baltimore area. Anybody who wants to learn filmmaking, Professor Kramer is a genius. So anybody interested in film and want to get some, really good insight on what it takes to be a filmmaker, you definitely want to go to Towson University and take one of Professor Kramer's classes.
And that being said, from you starting it off and you have your own company with your wife and going to Towson University, how did you get into media production? Like, did you start at an early age, or was it just something that came along in time and you became interested in it?
For me, I think around 13 years old, I didn't realize that it was a talent or either something that I could be doing in the future. But I remember being 13 years old, being locked in my room and creating audio stories with my boombox. This was like back in the 90s, man. So this is so there was no laptop for me. There was no Adobe Audition. There was no Final Cut Pro. I was in there with my boombox and two cassette tape player on my boombox, and I would record myself on one tape while also getting like interludes off of another tape. Like, okay, so back in the 90s, I'm not sure if people are familiar with it, but when you would get artists, like one of my first CDs was Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style. And so
one of the best rap albums of all time, in my
one
opinion.
Of the best.
In my opinion, one of the best ones.
I think it was his best album of all time.
It was definitely his best album.
I don't think he created anything better than that afterwards. But so I would use albums like Doggy Style and TLC's Crazy Sexy Cool. All of those CDs and albums back then used to have these interludes on them where artists would, like do little skits. Snoop Dogg in particular, he would always do like these party skits where he would always be in a party, his friends and them would be drinking and something would go on in there. So if I had a party scene in my audio story, I would use that CD to get the audio from those interludes to be able to create the illusion that I was in a party with people and being able to talk. And so I would record my voice on my boombox and I would create these 30-minute long stories, and I would take them to my friends' houses and let them listen to them like they were like they were real stories, and so much so that my friends, I was so into it that my friends started getting into it. So we would take a whole week and record our own stories on our boom boxes and see who could create the best one. And so I think that was my introduction to being able to produce content. So after that, I never really did too much after that. I tried to do plays. I tried to get into acting. I got into a few things. And so I would say that my real introduction to, really professional production was in 2012. I almost gave up on my acting career, if you want to call it a career, because I wasn't getting paid for it. I wasn't getting paid for anything. But a student from Johns Hopkins University was doing a web series called Nothing Like a Virgin. You can still find this web series on YouTube. It's some of my best and worst work at the same time, because it was like the height of my amateur career, but
wow.
but it's the worst work from a professional from a professional perspective. It's like, dang, man, that was garbage, but it was good for me because this was my first web series in 2012. And so when I got introduced to this young lady, her name is Erica Kelly. She ended up, well, now she's in Los Angeles, working on her own stuff. But it was through that production that led me to the, to the notion that I wanted to get into production now. I'm like, I don't think I want to act. I think I want to create my own content. And so the funny thing was, because I'm a veteran, my wife ended up finding out that I could go to school for free and get paid for it. And so, and it all came around the same time. I was in this web series. I knew exactly what I wanted to go to school for now. And then all of a sudden my wife came with this opportunity and was like, I think the military will give you a stipend so you could quit your job and just go to school and we'll be good. And so I looked into Towson University first. And the VA rep there told me to go to another school because I would be paying more money out. So I ended up going to University of Phoenix for a year and a half. Then I transferred into Towson University, and it's been production ever since.
Now, you going back to school and you learning media and then having the career that you've had now, how important is going to school for being in the media field?
I think it's really important for the connections. When you, because I've dealt with it on both sides. I've dealt with it from the amateur side, where I'm seeing, where you have a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing, but everybody's kind of shooting in the dark. Everybody's kind of feeling around. And especially in Baltimore, it's
yes, you see it a lot in
on
Baltimore.
an amateur level where nobody when nobody has any real direction and any real vision, and nobody really knows where to go. You just start seeing people like, oh, can you help me do this? And I promise you'll get exposure, and do this. And then you end up doing a play or doing something and only 5 people show up to it. And it's like, the heck am I doing? So, after doing that for a while and then going to school, it's nothing like doing a project where, people are being graded for the work that they're doing and helping you with your project. Yeah. And then you all have to come together and figure out a way to create your projects. And then not only that, but like being in Professor Kramer's class, we were able to read our scripts, and you're able to get advice about your script, whether you like it or not. The truth, one of the things that he taught me was, the truth of the matter is, you don't have to do anything anybody says to you, but you may come across some really good information that'll help make your script better that you did not expect. So it's your best bet to put your offenses to the side and allow people to give you their critiques on your film, whether you like it or not. And that was a good.
Being mad all the time.
Absolutely, I was always mad.
Yeah, stop being mad all the time. But somebody like, because I've had scripts where people was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. And then I had some stuff where they was like, that sucks. Like, right. I've had people critique the hell out of my ideas. It's you have to learn that balance, because there's sometimes where people are critiquing it to make it better. And then there's sometimes when they just being derogatory and just trying to say things that are very, angry and ignorant and stuff like that. And
absolutely.
But you can even in that, you might find like some truth in it. But still, it's like, you gotta take it in strides.
Absolutely. And school helped me there. Like I could only imagine being an amateur and then being an amateur, having no education, and walking into a room where people are critiquing your work and you don't know them, and it's not a controlled environment. I can only imagine how that person would feel. Like I would probably, if I got some of the critiques that I got in school, if I had got them in an arena where I knew nobody, and and
Yeah, with
nobody had
Gordon
my best
Ramsay.
interest, I would probably walk away. You know, it's like, oh man,
With
this ain't
Gordon
for me.
Ramsay,
I don't think
and
I
he's
want to do
like,
something.
yeah, Gordon Ramsay with this. This is pitiful. This is so.
Yeah. You're not a singer. You just go to American Idol and Simon just tell you you're trash. Like,
Yeah,
you
I'm
can't
like,
handle that. But being in school, I'm gonna tell you, just being in that environment, having the guidance from those professors, you know, Michelangelo, let me tell you, this guy, he was my first writing professor there. I think he's the chair of the media department now.
Yes.
So yeah, and so when he was my writing professor when I first got to Towson, and he told me my writing was trash. Like like in my one-on-one, he didn't say it in front of the class. And
he was like, yeah, it's
he
trash.
was like, I don't know what you're doing.
He was like, I don't know what you're doing, big fella. I don't know what you're doing. What you doing, big fella? I don't know.
Absolutely. That's exactly how I felt. I felt small in his office, but he always ended it in a way to tell me I could get better. You know, he would tell everybody, you're not going to get an A in this class, especially if this is your first time writing. Trust that you're not going to get an A, but you can get a B. But I walked out of there with a B, but I walked out of there also being a better writer. And I think that that's the benefits of school or production, is that you have you have these professors, you have these teachers, you have these mentors that are there who have walked the walk and are able to guide you and ultimately also put you in position. You know, let me just give you a little insight. Like, I would know nothing about BAFTA and some of these film. People wouldn't give me the credit, but in my circle of circles in this amateur arena, when I went to school, I was the first person in my circle to ever put something in a film festival, and it actually got selected. And when I put that on Facebook, and I promise you, everybody was going to film festivals after that. This was like in 2016 when I created. I'm not sure if Professor Kramer ever showed my film in his class or anything, but I did this film called Black and Blue back in 2016.
I think I might have heard of it. Because that's right when I first started coming to Towson. It was like, I was at Towson maybe a year.
I think you had just came.
Yeah, I just
literally I think you had just came through the door, because I think when I graduated, I think I saw you started like this group on Instagram where you were you guys were coming together and collaborating to make skits. That was everything I had in my mind to do when I got there. I just could not get people to jump on board with this thing. But you came right behind after I graduated and started that thing.
Yeah, no, hey, we can get that later. We can talk about that later in. What exactly happened there with a lot of them things.
But school is very beneficial. And I'm gonna hurry up and wrap it up. School is beneficial because it gives you there are connections that you cannot make on the amateur level that you can make on the educational level. So I would have known nothing about BAFTA. You know, being at Micah and being at Johns Hopkins, there were some other programs and things for filmmakers that, being in school taught me about. Being in school taught me about the Baltimore Film Office, taught me how to get a SAG signatory, taught me how to, find funding for your film and things like that. Having all of these resources, finding pitching competitions, making sure that your content is making sure you find an audience for your content, because it's easy to just throw something on YouTube and expect people to just be like, oh man, look at this film on YouTube. Sometimes it doesn't work like that. You have got to work the
Please say that again. Please say that again.
Just throwing stuff up on YouTube is not going to work. You got to find your audience. You have to do the footwork. Doing that film back in 2016, doing Black and Blue, I almost quit promoting it. But Professor Kramer kept telling me, he said, you got a year or 2 year window to promote your film. And I kept promoting my film. I tried to put it in film festivals that it didn't qualify for, just to see if people would bite. And so I ended up putting my film on the Howard University Film Festival. I ended up entering it into their film festival. That film festival was only for their students. But somebody saw my film and was like, no, we got to have this film here, because it was right around the time where police brutality was at an all-time high. And
Freddie Gray
whoever,
and everything like that was
yeah,
going on.
absolutely. And the lady who was in charge of the festival was like, no, I know you're not a student, but we got to have you here at our festival. We gotta screen this film. And I ended up winning Best Narrative at their film festival, and they ended up sending me to the American Black Film Festival.
Hey, that being said, this is kind of a two-part question on this end. What would you like to see change in the media industry? And then also, do you feel like there's some sort of monopoly in the media industry? Because there's only 6 major companies that owns
Right.
all of the media in the world.
Right. Right.
And now Apple is apparently trying to buy CBS and Viacom. So it's going to be 4 at that point in time. So do you think that there's a monopoly in there? And what would you like to see changed in the media industry?
What I would like to see change is just people not trying to be first and giving us the stories correct. You know, giving us the right stories, what it is that we really need to know, and stop trying to be first and giving us false information. So like, for instance, with like the whole Kobe Bryant thing, for like a week, we trying to figure out if Kobe is really dead. You know, nobody should be questioning if Kobe is really dead if the story came out right and people weren't trying to be first. You know,
that right there shouldn't have been an omen of what was to come during 2020, because
absolutely
the media made a clown of themselves from the Kobe death all the way to the coronavirus, everything that's going on right now with them. They're making clowns of themselves.
It's a circus.
They're showing it every single day.
It's a circus, and you know, nobody really knows unless you have like some really good intel that can really give you some solid information on the coronavirus. You know, you definitely don't want to depend on the media to give you this information. The media is saying at one point you need to wear a mask, and then the next point, masks aren't good because your hands got to touch the mask, and you could get the coronavirus anyway. The coronavirus can last for 6 seconds on a doorknob, and with all the coronavirus, it won't last outside. You know, you should wear a mask. You know, it's just all of this, you know, misinformation or not really clear information. And unless you have some really good intel, so like, for instance, you know, I'm a Sigma, you know, and so we are able to get on phone calls with actual doctors who, you know, Sigmas who are doctors, and they're able to tell us, you know, what's really going on in the world. And, you know, rest in peace to all of the, you know, the 14 Sigma brothers that have passed from the coronavirus. But, you know, nobody.
So this thing is real.
It is real. My best friend, you know, people think it's not real because it hasn't affected their homes yet. But my best friend just ended up having to stay home. He was an essential employee working at Costco's and ended up having to stay home because he had a fever. And the doctor ended up, you know, he didn't tell me if he had it or not, but he was like, I got to stay home for 2 weeks. I got to quarantine. Everybody in my house is sick. So, you know, it's definitely real, but it's like, are we getting accurate information? You know, all of a sudden it's crazy because, you know, you started seeing all of these videos where black celebrities saying black people can't get the coronavirus. And then all of a sudden the media focuses in on that. And now there's an influx of black people who has the coronavirus. And it's like, wait a minute, man. I wonder if we said if white people can't get the coronavirus, would they have done the same thing? I would have loved to have seen that and see if they had done that. But it was crazy right after, I can't even remember the guy's name, but right after the guy said it on the Breakfast Club, yeah, black people can't get the coronavirus. And then all of a sudden, KD got it, Idris Elba got it, you know, all these stars. I'm like, well, all these people travel too, you know, so, you know, what about close to home? So, you know, we're not, so that's, you know, just to answer your question, I would like to see that change in media where we are getting accurate stories and not stories, you know, people, you know, media companies trying to be first. The other thing is not only accurate stories, but like with the coronavirus, put real doctors on you know, on your panels. Don't put Bill Gates up there and try to tell me what I should do about, you know, the coronavirus. And this dude, you know, has been making computers for years. You know, find out Bill Gates has money in these media companies. And so he's, you know, afforded the opportunity to be able to get on a platform and give his dumb pertise, if you want to, for
And
lack of.
and the funniest part about that is that circles back around to the other question that I just asked. Is there a monopoly in the media industry?
It is, but it's working its way. I think that it's always gonna. So being at Johns Hopkins right now, so I'm at Johns Hopkins in their their master's program for film and media, and so my focus is business and business and writing. And one of my business classes, what to expect in this time where there's just so much freedom in media is like all of these companies are creating new companies and sister companies and sub companies like Roku and Apple, and everybody has these platforms that are making room for the little guys like us who have media companies that want to get into television, that want to get into radio. There are a lot of radio platforms out there now that will afford you to operate like a like a radio station without the brick and mortar.
Warner Media is big on that. Warner Media, I don't know if you know like their structure, but they own something called Otter Media, and Otter Media owns things like Rooster Teeth. That's a big channel on YouTube for like video games and stuff like that, and like it's like a nerd culture type of channel. And they own Rooster Teeth. It's like you don't see how that stuff trickled down where now they're trying to own YouTube channels and making them into brands and doing all these different things. So yeah.
Absolutely. And so, what I've learned in those business classes is that, media has always, operated like this. Like there will be a large breaking up of companies, and then everything will get consolidated and a few people will own all of these companies. It's really no way to escape it. Just people are finding new ways to do things, and then all of a sudden it becomes like the Wild Wild West, and then all of a sudden somebody controls it. So that's how it's going to happen. So if you think about Netflix, how Netflix started, with Netflix, they had the DVDs, but then what people don't know is that they tried to get Blockbuster to buy them. Blockbuster wouldn't buy them, and so they just outworked Blockbuster. And
Blockbuster was an idiot for that.
Yeah. And now Blockbuster's nowhere to be found, but they tried to sell themselves, and now they got $1 billion. Netflix has $1 billion company. Now, think about how Netflix, made it big. What they did was they're not operating in syndication. They're buying content. Nobody's getting any residual for the content that they put out on Netflix. Netflix buys it, you leave it there, and now it is Netflix. So so companies like Disney and Fox and all these, Marvel movies and all that stuff, these companies got big checks from Netflix, and Netflix kept housed their content. And so now Disney, now we're talking about now they didn't went off. Now Disney is trying to get control back of their content. Like, well, shoot, if Netflix is doing this, now we need to get control of our content and make people buy it from us. And so trying to get their power back from Netflix. But now Netflix has now started a whole different now they're trying to start have their own content. Like everything on Netflix now says Netflix films.
Original. Or
Netflix Originals has the N on it. You know what I'm saying? So Netflix is trying to hurry up and get their content in place so companies like Disney, companies, and other companies don't put them out of business by taking back their content. So, there's always a major shift and then a huge consolidation. I just think that, and I said when our professors were talking to us about it, I said the only way Netflix, and this was before it really started happening, at least
in the back of your mind,
in the back of my mind before it started, I was like, well, the only way Netflix can really survive is if they just start their own network. And if they just start a network and just house their content, they'll be good. Well, in actuality, that's what they're doing. They just started their own network, and they just housing content, buying content from people like yourself and myself, and housing it and creating their own network. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have their own TV network in the next 10 years.
What advice would you give? Well, it's kind of, again, it's like an intersecting question. What kind of advice would you give to individuals that have a production company startup that they're building? They're trying to get it off the ground. They're trying to get more people involved to help out with production, stuff like that. Like, what advice would you give them? And then also in that same token, What do you feel like? Do you feel like film students should change about their mentality on how they approach projects?
The first question, the advice that I would give to any new media entrepreneur is don't be afraid to lose money um, in an effort to make your company look good. Like, when you are trying to get your name out there, you're trying to get your production company out there, you're going to have to put out more money than you get back. And when I say put out more money, I'm talking about paying people to do the work. So that way, and somebody that can do it faster, the job may only pay you $1,000, right? It may cost you like maybe $400 to get somebody to go shoot something. You have $500 left to edit. You may have to give that $500 up to somebody who can edit faster than you, and rather than keeping it in your pocket, so that way you can get more money. And because, with me, that's where I found my errors in the past, is where somebody would want a project sooner than I could produce it. And I would, in some instances, guarantee that I could do it, but I could only if that was the only project I was working on. And so because it wasn't the only project I was working on, a lot of the projects that people wanted me to do at a fast pace, I couldn't get done because I didn't want to get up off the money. I'm like, well, I only made this much money and I need to keep this in the house so I can get groceries and this and that. Well, you may have to sacrifice in some areas and get somebody who can do that project for you, pay somebody to do it, so that way your business looks good in the long run. And it will, it's better to get rid of that $500 then, because it could produce another $1,000 later. That and even more money, because you'll be able to, once those, it's about the clients coming back and giving you referrals rather than you getting the money.
Yeah,
it's about you bringing in more resources. It's about that. And so that's where I've erred in the past. So I can say that with boldness, that, you want to make sure that whatever you are producing, don't worry about the money, let it go, because it will come back to you. Other things is try your best to do things that you're interested in. Sometimes we get caught up in just getting paid, but you end up not doing those projects well that you're not really interested in. That's why it's got to be bigger than money. It's got to be about your brand. It's got to be bigger than money. Do things with people that line up with your brand, line up with things that you believe in, because the things you believe in, you do well. And, it's easy to be like, oh man, this man gonna pay me $1,000 to do this, to edit his play, and you're not even interested in plays, you just, and you got a music video, you like doing music videos, but you over here editing this play that you don't like edited, but you just shot this music video and you spending all your time on this music video.
Trying to make sure it's nice. I feel you. I feel you.
So make sure, make sure you're doing stuff that you're interested in, because you won't do those, and not doing it for money, because you won't do those things well. So that'll be my piece of advice that I give.
I think we're going to be working on some great stuff here, and it's definitely going to be different. It's definitely going to be good. So it's going to be cool. And Titus is definitely doing things out here that's going to change the game. He's really trying to give back to that next generation, because he knows that generation is going to be the future, and you always have to invest in the future to change the world today. So that being said, I appreciate everybody that watched this interview. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share on all of your social media platforms, and we'll definitely catch you in the next interview. That's Titus. I'm Antoine. Have a great day.